Hello world, welcome back to the Razor RC, and I wanted to put together a video talking about the Team Corally Sketer 4S a little more in depth and talking about kind of the tuning adjustments I've made to the truck since I've got this. Special shout out to Team Corally for sending this out for review. Really nice 4S truck, probably the best actually in the 4S RTR space. And at $490 here in the US, really good value, especially compared to something like a Max, which is like, I don't know, what are they, $580 or so right now. So anyways, just want to cover the changes I made, talk about kind of the general driving characteristics of this vehicle, and things you can do to kind of improve the performance or make it a little bit more of an all-around basher. So first thing I want to talk about is the vehicle itself. And dimension-wise, size-wise, everything, it's pretty much like an 8th scale buggy. It's got the short arms, same arms as the Python or the Radix. It's got the same wheelbase, you know, pretty much like an 8th scale wheelbase. I think the shock towers are probably dimension or geometrically similar to Python or Radix as well. So again, it's also kind of got the shorter shocks. So the way this thing drives actually is very similar to an 8th scale buggy out of the box. It's really kind of more like a 4-wheel drive stadium truck. So if you have another 4-wheel drive stadium truck like a, I don't know, Vortex or Rustler or something like that, it's just kind of a larger size version of that, but similar driving characteristics. And the way I would describe it is pretty much very race oriented, I would say. If you took this to the track and actually drove around, I think you'd find the handling actually really good. It's designed to kind of carve the corners, really good steering, flies through the air really flat, you know, kind of designed for those jumps, hit those things, land the downsides, all that kind of stuff. So in a racing environment or track environment, I think this would actually perform pretty well. Now obviously it's been beefed up quite a bit to make it a lot more durable with, you know, the tower-to-tower brace, the spring steel outdrives. You know, very durable vehicle. It's obviously a basher, has all the adjustments, sway bars, adjustable turnbuckles, that kind of thing. Now in terms of how I personally like to drive, so I like taking this to more like a BMX park with big jumps, you know, doing a backflip or two, maybe a forward flip as well. And that's kind of where I think this vehicle is not really specifically designed, so I want to kind of cover the changes I made. First off, one of the areas I think helps quite a bit is to change out the tires. So the stock tires are these. You know, a little bit of a smaller size tire for 8th scale, not so much like a stunt type vehicle. This thing size-wise and actually durability-wise and actually even drivetrain-wise is pretty much a 6S vehicle. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they made like a Dementor or something out of this chassis, because you could just put on the longer arms, longer hubs, bigger tires, and get that same Dementor size and rotation, all that kind of stuff. But these tires are really meant more for like flatter ground, I think. They're kind of an all-terrain tire, so they're somewhat stiff, so they don't balloon quite as much. Keep the tires on the ground a little bit better, but it doesn't rotate through the air as well. Now, it is kind of difficult to just mount on bigger tires because it does have the short arms, the short hubs and stuff like that. So the first mod I think that is well worth doing is the wide Sketer mod. So I actually have wider hubs and wider rear hubs in the back, and so that actually allows you to mount bigger tires and then not have the tires actually rub the body. So tires I'm running are actually these Badland tires from Proline, and if you just had the stock geometry, the stock knuckles, larger tires like this, you can see size comparison wise they're, you know, maybe another ½ inch in diameter. You know, basically they would rub the body, kind of balloon a little bit, make that nasty screeching noise, that kind of thing. So yeah, I do recommend actually widening the vehicle if you want to mount bigger tires. Again, bigger tires are going to allow you to rotate through the air a little bit better. It'll sit up a little bit higher, obviously make it more of an all-terrain or stunt type vehicle, allow you to do backflips a little bit more, but you do need to widen the vehicle in some manner to actually allow you to do that. Now there are a few different ways to do that. Some people like to put on really you know, shallow backspaced tires, so basically the wheels and tires themselves stick out quite a bit without any other modifications. I don't recommend that. It does kind of screw it with, they call it, you know, the tire scrub. Basically the tires are not going to be moving in line with the pivot point on the actual knuckles. You actually will tend to kind of understeer on the front end quite a bit, and then kind of screw up the handling in my opinion. That's kind of one of the advantages of the Sketer, is that it does drive so well. Another modification some people like to do is use hub extenders. So you can get hub extenders that, you know, push it out whatever 10 or 15 millimeters or something like that. I personally am not a fan of that, and the reason for that is because when you have a really wide basically axle or hub extender, you still have the original bearing placement, which is, you know, kind of in line here on the knuckle, and then you have like sort of a long hex extension that kind of pushes it out, but you're basically having all the torque, all the forces still applied at that original spot. It's almost like swinging a baseball bat where you're just holding the knob of the bat and not really holding it on the handle. You tend to apply a lot of torque. It's harder on the bearings. You know, some people, like on a Traxxas Max, put on hub extenders, and then they find that they're breaking the axles basically. I don't think you'll break axles on this, but you definitely are putting extra torque, especially when you're landing those big jumps and you're basically applying all the forces on those bearings that are still kind of at the end of the axle rather than kind of supporting it properly. My personal favorite and the way I like to do things is basically just get the hubs and knuckles from Dementor or Kronos. You can get part out parts. It's a fairly inexpensive way to do that, and then it allows you to basically put on the wider hexes and get that, you know, pretty reasonable tire scrub, kind of similar to the original tire. Now the last method people use is to use longer arms. Again, I'm not a fan of just using longer arms with the narrow hubs. What happens is, okay, you use the longer arms, but then your shocks are now actually laid down really flat because the longer arms have the mounting points much wider than before. Your shocks are actually going to be too short, so you really should be getting the additional shock towers, front and rear. Also, you have to get the longer drive shafts as well. So, not a fan of that. You really should probably get the shocks as well from a Creighton or Punisher or Dementor. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I would just get the wider hubs, and you will need the longer axles as well. Cost you $60 or $70, not particularly expensive. So that's kind of the proper way, in my opinion, to mount up wider tires. Kind of the one weakness in this vehicle, it's quite stout overall. It's pretty difficult to bend anything because it is so triple and quadruple reinforced. But the one upgrade I did is actually get the 7075 Ackermann bar. So the stock piece is carried over from the 2021 vehicles. I don't think they made any changes, but what they did do was add an additional bar on top of the steering rack. I think that is 7075, but the original Ackermann bar is not. That's really kind of the one part that can bend on the vehicle. So with that change, I haven't bent any of the Ackermann bars any place. It's not actually hard to fix. Even if you do bend it, you can actually just pop this off, grab some pliers, and kind of bend it back in place without having to remove anything. But the 7075 piece, I think, is more durable. And then the other thing I would do is, once you upgrade that, then you're putting a little more stress on the steering links when you sort of land poorly on a corner, especially on the front end. So I'm actually running the plastic links. They just have a little more give. They flex a tiny bit. Will not tend to bend or break the rods as easily because you do have like this 2 or 2.5 inch long piece that does tend to flex. All the steering links and everything are the same as the dimensions as the Python or Radix, so you can just buy the Python plastic links and bolt up just fine. You can do it to the rear end if you want as well. I haven't bent or broken any of these, so I'm just running the stock ones, but the plastic ones do add a little more durability if you're having issues with any of the metal pieces. The spring steel turnbuckles don't bend, but they are super strong, and then what would bend in a bad crash is the plastic pieces actually. So one area to beef that up. Now in terms of fluids, I'm actually running 750 CST front and rear. Stock out of the box I believe is 600 front and rear. In the center differential, I'm actually running 200K diff oil. I believe stock is 100K, so a little bit thicker in the center. Again, that allows you to rotate the vehicle a little more in the air if you like doing the stunts, the big jumps, that kind of thing, the back flips. The thicker shock fluids front and back, it's actually not bad out of the box. Suspension tuning wise, it's really kind of designed, like I mentioned, for kind of a race environment, a little bit more of a low altitude type thing. But if you're doing big jumps, launching at 15-20 feet high, probably worth being the shock fluid inside the shock, so pretty easy change to do there. And the last thing I want to talk about is actually front nosedive. So on some of you that are doing jumps with this thing, you may have noticed that it tends to kind of kick up the rear, kind of nosedive easily. There's a couple reasons for that. One is it is fairly low to the ground, not very much ride height out of the box, you know, sort of set up a little bit lower to the ground, a little more better handling, a little bit more corner carving, that kind of thing. But one thing I did notice on this vehicle is that the rear bumper does stick out quite a bit. It's got a really nice wraparound rear bumper for protection. It also generally has a wheelie bar here in the back that I removed. But the kind of the issue with that is that it does sit kind of low in the rear. And so if you have problems with this thing, you know, nose diving as soon as you go off a jump, especially if you have a really steep jump, what's actually happening is that the rear end is kind of smacking off the face of the jump, kicking it up, and then causing it to nosedive in the front. So something you can do, and I was actually playing around with this for a while, is you could actually either cut down this bumper, or you could remove the bumper completely and run like a Python style bumper. I think it has like a little plastic thing here in the back just as kind of a spacer more than anything else. That will actually give you an additional, you know, 4 or 5 millimeters of extra space here on the back. Also, this bumper tends to stick out quite far in the rear, so again, it kind of tends to hit the ground on those really steep jumps. So that will alleviate that problem, improve it, you know, probably by like 20-30%. So it can be a change you can make if you're having issues with this thing nosediving. I've been leaving it on with the bigger tires, and also kind of thicker shock fluids in the rear. It's not squatting quite as much in the back, so not as much of an issue for me. But that is something you can do, something you can play with to get a little more better performance when you're going off those jumps and you're having issues with it nosediving. So anyways, yeah, those are some tips. That's basically the changes I made to my Team Corally Sketer. Really fun, really durable vehicle. You could certainly gear it up as well. It is a little under geared out of the box, or you could just basically run bigger tires, which has the same effect as gearing it up. Allows you to do more rotations in the air. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. Look for more videos soon, and thanks for watching.